So, let's take a look at the challenges from last week, right? So what was the first challenge? The first challenge was, remind me again, right? Temperature conversion, right? Okay, so let's break this problem down, right? It's like a three-step kind of thing, right? That's the way to handle these engineering problems or computer science problems is to break it down into its components, right? And then tackle each component one at a time. I think a lot of you were getting stuck because you're trying to solve it all at once, right? But just break the problem down and work through it and stop at each part and solve what you can, and you'll find that eventually you'll get to the end, right? So I'd say the first thing we need to do is get user input. Right? We're doing a temperature conversion, so we need to somehow get the original temperature, right? Then we need to do some math, right? We need to take that number in, and what was the equation for Fahrenheit to Celsius was minus a number, multiply by a number, and then divide by another number, right? So we have to do some math, and then we have to report the result, right? So even if you don't know how to do each one of these all together, you could at least start with one, right? Start with the one you know. So, get user input. We know how to do that, right? So let's do that. So we'll go here, and remember, this was a speed test, so I didn't give marks for proper form. I was just looking for a solution that worked, right? So we need our HTML. Okay, and we need a body, and we need a head. Okay, and in our body, we need an input of type text, and I think we'll give it an ID called temp. Okay. And now, so again, remember, sorry? You know what? We don't even need the form. Because, well, it depends. You could use the form. So if you did use a form then, it would be a little more complex. Because then you have to, so we would put the form, we'd need the form and we'd need a submit button. And then in the form tag, we would need to say on submit, do this. So actually, I think probably creating an entire form is you could do it, it works. But I think in this case, just for quick and dirty, it was a little bit too much. So let's, and remember, always test as you go, right? Don't code a whole bunch of stuff and then try and run it and then, oh, nothing appears. I don't know why. But if you code a little bit, code a little bit and test, then it's much easier to debug. Okay, so we have our text box, okay, and then the other thing I wanted to do, so we do need to create some kind of button, like something to initiate our script, right? So we could use a div tag, and I'll call it ID button. Whoops, I chopped off the V here. And then I'm going to put my style. Now I know this is bad practice, but again, we were just going quick, right? So in this case, you can just put your CSS in line, right? And so what did we do here? We said I want to say all div tags. I want to make them. I want to make all div the width. Let's make it 100 pixels, and we'll make the height 50 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. And then inside we'll put press me, right? So I put press me in between the div tags. And let's refresh now. So now I have a sort of a button, but let's make the background color. What do we want? Let's make it red. Okay, so we have a button now. Okay. Now, you could use just straight JavaScript, but I think jQuery makes things easy for you, so let's use it. So what we need to do is go to jQuery, and I think a lot of you are having problems running jQuery from the CDN. Remember, there's two ways to install jQuery. You can link the CDN, which that means the jQuery file is hosted on another server somewhere else, or you can actually download it yourself and host it yourself. So I think a lot of you are having trouble with the CDN because I don't think it likes it when you're not running on a server. Because we're running from Internet Explorer, we're not going through a server. I think that's why you're having trouble connecting to the CDN. So what we want to do is download the compressed production version of jQuery. So we'll keep it, and I'm going to show it in the folder. And no. So the CDN is like the file stays on the server, and we just link to it. But so what I've done is actually downloaded the file, and I'm going to include that with my other files. So I'm going to copy this or cut this jQuery file into here. Okay, right next to my HTML, my index file. So now I'm going to go here, and in my head, I'm going to say script source equals, we'll close the script, equals, and I'm going to go over here and copy and paste the file name. Okay? Even file names like this that are a little funny with hyphens, and always copy and paste, right? Okay. So then what we can do is we can put, where do we want to put the script? We want to put the script here. I'm going to put it, so remember JavaScript you can put anywhere. It doesn't have to be in the head. Okay? And because I want to avoid using the ready function because I'm trying to make the quickest solution possible, I'm going to put the script below, my JavaScript below here. Because what I'm going to do with my jQuery is I'm going to assign a click handler to my div button here. Okay? But if I try and do that before the div button is loaded, I'm going to get an error because the script doesn't know, right? Always remember your page is loaded top down. Right? So if you try and run a script that is referencing an element that hasn't loaded yet, then you're going to have an error. Okay? Okay, so actually let's just do this. Remember, I always like to test my stuff before I move on. So I just want to make sure that my script is working okay. Okay, good. Right, so see how I'm testing every little bit. It's all about modules and making sure that everything is working. Okay, as we go. So what do we want to do? We want to, I want to assign a click handler. So the way we do that is we use, so remember events. Can someone name some events for me that we can assign handlers to? What are some events that occur on a web page? On click, yeah. So when you click something, yep. On load, yeah. So when the page loads, you could make some JavaScript run. What else? On focus, yep. So, and these can be assigned to every HTML element, right? So when, for example, here, when I click on that, the onFocus event for that text box has fired, but I haven't attached a handler to it. So it's just firing and nothing's happening, right? But it's, or now there's mouse in, mouse out, there's drag and drop, there's, what else? Key down, key up, yep, absolutely. So what you can do, for example, is if you get the key up event, you check what key it is, and then you can do something accordingly, right? So these are all events that jQuery, it makes it easy for us to attach a handler to it. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go in here, and we're going to get rid of our alert box, and we're going to say, so remember, we'll do a quick pre-jQuery review. So what's the first thing I always need to put for any jQuery statement? $, right? That's the short form for saying like jQuery, right? But instead we just use one symbol. So we use $, and then what's always the left-hand side of the jQuery statement? Yeah, the selector, right? And so we have bracket, bracket, quote, quote, and then inside we can use those CSS selector rules. We can select by element name, we can select by ID, we can select by class, we can select by, and there's many, many more things that I didn't cover. You can select all the child nodes of all the div tags. There's many, many options for selecting. But what we want to do is we just have we have one div tag, so we could select div, or let's select by ID, which would be button. Okay, so so that's the left-hand side. So this is, we're selecting the element to do something to, right? So this is the element we're selecting, and then what we're going to do is say, we're going to say click, and then we're going to define a function that happens when that thing is clicked. Okay? So we open up the bracket, and then inside we're going to define a function. So we use the keyword function with parentheses, then open curly brace, then I put a blank line, closing curly brace, closing round bracket, semicolon. Okay? So now anything in here will run when I click that element that I'm assigning it to. Okay? So what's the best way to test this quickly if it's working? What should I put in here just quickly to test it? An alert box, right. Clicked. Okay, so let's see. Okay, good. So far so good, right? Okay. So now, so look, we're almost done this part, right? We just need to do, so we've sort of initiated, we've created a button that allows the user to say, okay, accept my input, but now we actually have to get the input. So, again, what do we have to do inside here? What do we want to do? We're getting the value, right? So where are we getting the value from? Yeah, the input box. So how do we gave it an ID, we called it temp, right? So we could do the same thing. So jQuery, so we use $, bracket, bracket, quote, quote. So how do I select that? Yeah, exactly. I'm going to select on the ID, right? And then I believe for, it should be val for, let's see here. Get, yeah, val. So then, on the left side, we've selected what we want to pick, and then on the right side of the dot, we're going to do something to that. In this case, we're going to get the value. Right? So again, how do I test that this is working? I'm going to use my trusty alert box. So, as much as I say alert boxes are bad, they do come in handy. You just shouldn't use them in production sites. So now I'm going to alert that, and let's see what happens. Oh, I have to refresh first. Okay. So far, so good. So now we have the first part done, right? We have now successfully taken user input and put it into our script. So now what do we have to do? Now we have to do some math, right? So let's see, how to convert Celsius. Google is so smart, eh? Okay, so we'll go here, and it has a little calculator, but we don't want that. We want the formula. What is it? So F to C. So let's do that one first. So deduct 32, multiply by 5, divide by 9. So what we can do is, instead of alerting, we will use a variable, right? Let's call it temp equals, okay? And then we'll create another variable called converted temp, and that equals temp minus 32, and then I guess we need brackets. And what was it? multiply by 5, divide by 9. Whoops. Multiply by 5, divide by 9. Okay. Whoops. Let's see. So that was a pretty easy part, right? That was the middle part. That's our math. So what's the second part? Now we need to report the result. Okay, so, in my, again, this is all about speed. So an alert box would be fine. So let's see if it works. So I'm just going to put converted temp in my alert box. Oops, and go here. And let's see, what are we going to? Fahrenheit? So 30. No, that doesn't make sense. What am I doing here? I'm going. Oh, that was. No, that does make sense. That was going Fahrenheit. Where's my conversion? Does that make sense? Because I was going Fahrenheit to Celsius. So 30 degrees Fahrenheit. It seems about right. It's about -1. Yeah, right. And so you had a question about the $sign. So you only need the $sign when you're using jQuery specifically. So this stuff here, well, here, this is jQuery, but the rest of it here, that's all just straight JavaScript. So you don't need the $sign for just regular JavaScript. Right? And then, for the other one, you could have had just 2 alert boxes or something. And so you could have done a couple of ways. You could have maybe put in a checkbox or a drop down or something, but that would get a little complex, right? Then you'd need like an if statement, and again, you guys had 20 minutes, so fast. So the way I did is, I would just have 2 alert boxes, and all I said was that it had to do both. So if it does both all the time, that would have satisfied the challenge, and that's it, you're done, right? So we could have just, this could be F to C, and then we could do the same thing. We could say C to F, and what's the formula here? Multiply by, so it's basically just the reverse. Multiply by 9, what is it? Divide by 7, add 32. Add 32. Yes. Yeah, I don't think we need brackets for that one. And then you could just alert both. Right, so we do this. Okay. And that seems right. No. That's too cold. Because 30 is warm, right? 30 should be about, let's see what this says. I guess my formula is just off. 30 degrees Celsius equals 86 Fahrenheit. Oh, well, that'll do it. Okay, 86. There we go. Okay, so again, with these problems, you want to break them down. Break them down, and then solve each little bit. Right? Because that's easy. Trying to solve it, the whole thing, that's a challenge, difficult, hard to do. Okay? Okay, let's do the other one really quick. So that one was print out the lyrics to 99 Bottles of Beer on the Wall. Right? Okay. So this one's a little harder because it's kind of only one thing. It's not as easily chunkable. Okay? But let's just look at it. Let's look at it for a sec. Let's look at sort of our problem space here. So obviously you can see why I picked this song, right? Because it's repetition. This is a very repetitious song. So, right away you should be thinking loop, right? Whenever you see something in computers that is repetitious, use a loop, right? Because you could copy and paste all of this, right, and paste it in, but that's not efficient. So let's look what parts of each of these statements, what stays the same, right? So actually, you know what? Let's just print out the first line. Let's do that. That's a good way to chunk this. Let's just print out the first line, okay? So what we want to do is, I'll create a new index file here. Index2. Okay. And I'm going to copy all this in here and then rip out this stuff. What do I want to do? Yeah, let's get rid of this. And we don't need this, but we'll keep jQuery just in case we need it. And we'll get rid of this. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is we'll create a paragraph tag where our text will go, right? So we'll call this, we'll give this an ID called lyrics, okay? And so let's do this. Let's use jQuery. So we'll say $, quote, quote, and we want to access the lyrics, so we'll use hashtag lyrics, and then we'll say text, and then we use the bracket, and we're going to put in, let's just put in the text. Oops, no, that's not what I want. Oh, let's do this. We'll create a variable called lyrics, and I'm going to go back to here, and I'm just going to copy one verse. Okay, I'm going to put this all on one line. Here we go. And then I'm going to put in here, oops, please check, save failed. What the hell? Please check if it's open in another program. It happens all the time. To you? It's never happened to me. Oh, maybe that's a bug. Okay, I'm just going to select all and copy, and then we'll reopen it. What? Okay, I don't know, there's something up with that one. Let's just create a new file. Index3.html. Save. Okay, so we saved that one. So let's try it. Okay, so we have the first, why is this going nuts on me? We have the first part of our problem. Okay, we have one verse printed out. Okay, so let's look at it now. So what parts, what parts do we want to repeat? And what parts need to change every time, right? So obviously all of this, the text, everything but the numbers is going to stay the same, right? So what we need is for these to be replaced, not be hard-coded strings, but to be variables. Okay? So we could do this. Let's try, we'll call it number, and we'll make it equal 99. And then now what I'm going to do is intersperse my variable throughout my string literal. These are called, it's a string literal, right? So for mixing variables and string literals, what symbol, how do we concatenate strings? What symbol do we use? Plus, right? So we're going to add two strings together, and they're just going to concatenate together. So what we can do here is we'll say number plus, and then we'll get rid of the 99. Okay, let's see what that looks like. It's going to look exactly the same. Okay? See? Okay, so let's do that for the rest. So now what I have to do is end my string, begin this string, and put in here plus number plus. So see how I'm taking this and sticking this to it, and then sticking this to it, and then sticking the rest of that to it. Okay? So the other thing I need to do is I'm going to end the string here, begin the string there, and replace this with our variable. Okay? So now we have, so we need more space. We need some space here and there, so let's put that in. So we have to put that there and there. So now we have space. And now also we have a problem. It says 99, 99, 99. We need the third number always needs to be one less than the other two, right? So that's easy because we've used a variable now. And we can just subtract 1. Okay? So now when we refresh, now it says 98. Okay. So far we're almost there. So now what we have to do is just stick this all into a loop. So let's do that. So first of all, what sort of loop should we use for this? There are while loops. I showed you while loops and for loops. A for loop. Why should you use a for loop? Because what? Yes, and you know the number of times. If you were uncertain, you would use a while loop. Remember, while loops and for loops can be made to do exactly the same thing. They are the same thing, except for loops, the syntax is a little bit different to support another usage, a different usage, okay? So we're going to say for, and remember the first part of the for loop is our counter variable and what it starts at. So actually, we want to start at 99. Yeah? Okay? And then the second part is what happens, the condition, the Boolean condition, that if it's true, it'll keep looping. So we want to say while I is greater than equal to 0. Because we want to have no bottles of beer in the wall, 0 bottles of beer, right? Then the third part is what happens to I every time you go through a loop iteration. So we could do a shortcut. So I minus minus means subtract 1. Another one that's a little more clear is I equals I minus 1. Both of those do the same thing. But if you want to be, look like you know what you're doing, then put I minus minus. Okay? All right. So now we have a loop. So let's do this. So one thing we can't do, what will happen if I just stick this in here? Will this work? Will that work? Because think, let's go through it in our minds. So we go through the first time, we declare a variable called lyrics, and then we set the number. So lyrics equals 99 bottles of beer, equals 1 verse. Then we go back up, and look what we're doing. We're redefining the variable, and we're just clobbering over the last thing. So what will happen is it'll just be one line still. Right? So it's looped over 99 times, but every time it just replaces what was there. We need to append, not overwrite. Okay? So what we have to do is our variable definition needs to be outside of the loop. So we define the variable only once. Okay? And then here we say lyrics equals lyrics, so what it already is, plus a new bit. Right? So let's save that and see what it looks like now. Oh, okay. So a little better, but so a couple of things. So we want a new line after each row. So let's add that in here. So we'll add in a line break. Okay? And then we will refresh. Oops. Oh, why didn't that? But it didn't, my line break didn't work. Why didn't that work? Because it's being put inside a paragraph.
Delete the BR and then say plus or BR, I think.
Really? No, that shouldn't make a difference. I think it has to do with because I'm putting it inside a paragraph. Yeah, so let's... It should work though. Where is it? Let's see here. Page source. What can we do here? Well, let's try... I wonder if I change it to a div. Don't think that would work, but it should work the other way. No, still same. Did I save it? Yeah. Okay, what can I do here? I wonder if I put it inside paragraphs. If I do this. Let's try this. And here. End with a paragraph. What's going on here? How come my color is messed up? Oh. Okay. No, wait. Oh, something happened here. Okay. Oops. There we go. Okay. Let's see if that works. No, still the same. Let me see here. What's going... Oh! I know. Oh, okay. So instead of... Let's do this for a second. Let me load it in here. Because what I think, instead of setting the text, we need to set the HTML. Oops. Let me put this here. Oops. So one really handy thing is being able to inspect elements in Chrome. So if you right-click on any element in Chrome and click Inspect Element, it'll pull up this this right here. This is our JavaScript console, okay? And this is our DOM. This is our web page. So what we can do is look inside here and see exactly what's going on. So I still don't get why it's not. Oh, do I? Oh, because no, but that shouldn't make a difference because the BR didn't work. No. So what I'm going to do is, instead of setting the text, I'm going to set the HTML. Okay? Which is slightly different. There we go. So now the HTML actually works. So what it was doing, because I was setting the text, then the browser then treats these as just text, not as tags. But because I'm changing the HTML, now it actually respects those tags as HTML tags. Okay? So we still have one problem, which is the numbers don't match. So all we have to do now is go back here, and what do I have to switch out? Because I have number here, which is always equal to 99. What do I want to switch number with? Yeah, I, right? Because I is a variable, it's going to change every time. Okay, there we go. And there we go. Okay. Oh, -1. Uh-oh. So what we could do is, that means I want to adjust my... What do I want to adjust? Yes? Yeah, so I could either make this a 1 or I could get rid of the equals. And now, so I've moved my boundary condition up 1. Okay, so now 0 bottles of beer on the wall. And if you really wanted to get fancy, we could have an if statement. So here it says 1 bottles of beer, which isn't grammatically correct. But we could put in an if statement that says, you know, if I is less than 3, then print out without the s. Right? But that wasn't required for the challenge. So is everyone pretty clear on what we did there? Right? These are the types of problems that you're going to face as a web developer. Right? You're going to get these high-level problems, and then you have to think back into your toolkit, right, of to what you can use to make these things happen. Right? And so use that approach of breaking it down. Do what you can. Do what you know first. Right? Do what's easy. Right? We just printed out one thing. Right? And then slowly then improve your solution, and then you'll arrive at the right answer. Okay? So any questions about that? I'll post these files up on eCentennial for you guys for review. Okay? Okay. So, let's see. I think, we did a little jQuery review there. And so I don't think I'm going to do a specific, because we don't have a ton of time. We're going to end a little bit early today, and I want to give you some time to work on the assignment. So does anybody feel like they're not clear on what you can do? I mean, there's more, we haven't looked at using jQuery for Ajax, but I'm not really going to teach you that. But basically, as long as you understand that jQuery, on the left side, you're selecting elements, and on the right side, you're doing something to that element, either setting the text, or hiding it, or assigning an event handler to it, or basically doing something to the element. Because remember, when we first started, remember the long lines of code that we had to use in order. So you remember this? Right? Remember when we did form validation without jQuery? We had to do this big thing, document.forms, and then we had to do this. This is a really weird syntax, difficult to remember and to use properly, versus just, we could say $number fname dot val. Right? It makes things so much easier. And when you get into things like Ajax, it really makes it easier. Okay? So you should always use jQuery. There's never really a reason not to use jQuery. If you're using JavaScript in your website, you should. jQuery is one of those frameworks that really doesn't have a trade-off. Like some frameworks, some of the larger frameworks, like WordPress, for example, right? There's a good time to use it and a sort of not a bad time, not an appropriate time. jQuery, though, just use it. It just makes your life easier. Okay? So always remember about jQuery. Okay? And there's always, I have the video up online if you guys want to review that too. I took you through how to hide things, how to fade out, how to change text, how to do click events, all those things. The stuff that we use for these challenges. Okay? Okay, so I want to switch gears a little bit to HTML5. So how many of you have heard of HTML5? No one? Haven't really heard of HTML5? You've heard of it? Haven't? Not too much? A little bit? Yep.
I've heard of something how Apple didn't support Flash because they were on HTML5.
Yeah.
HTML5 instead.
Yeah. So what does that mean? Okay. So remember back to my first lecture where I was kind of moaning and groaning about how web technology was pretty difficult to use, right? There were all these different tools, right? You had HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP. And then if you wanted to do something interactive, like you wanted to have a game or a movie or something, then you had to use yet another tool. Does anyone know what that tool was? You mentioned it just now. Flash, right? Up until, what year is it? 2014. Let's say 2009-ish. But even now, see, the thing with HTML5, it's not yet fully supported, all of it. But so up until, let's say, 2009-ish, if you wanted to have some animation or, relatively complex interactivity, like things zooming in or like moving around or doing things, or you wanted to play a video, you had to use yet another technology called Flash. Okay? Now, what is the problem with that? So, one, Flash is a third-party plugin that you need to install and that not everybody has installed. So my 85-year-old grandmother uses a computer and the internet, but I'm pretty sure she doesn't have Flash installed. And if a website asked her to do that, she would think that the computer was blowing up or something, right? So, as a developer, let's say, I'm going to make my site in Flash. You could do that. Bad idea, because if someone doesn't have Flash, they can't access your page. Okay? Another problem with Flash, iOS devices don't support it, and I don't believe Android devices support it either anymore. That is because of some security problems that have been discovered with Flash. Okay? Okay. So, HTML5 is an attempt to bring everything in-house, right? To bring it all together. So we're trying to reduce now all these extra tools. We don't want to use Flash anymore. We don't want yet another, right? If you want to use Flash now, you have to learn ActionScript. Okay, that's another scripting language that you have to learn. Then you have to learn, like here, I have Flash here. Have any of you ever used Flash? Yeah, you've done. What did you do in Flash?
Just basic animation.
Yeah, animation. So Flash is meant for. It's not really targeted, or at least initially, it wasn't targeted at coders, but more at like graphic design people. So Flash is this whole. So to work in Flash, you need to buy the authoring tool from Adobe. Okay, you need to buy it. You can't, like in HTML, we can just use Notepad if we wanted, right? So there's another problem with Flash. We need to buy an authoring tool. Okay, so this is the authoring tool. You have this thing here called the stage, and then you have some vector graphics you can draw on and put text on, and then down here you have like a timeline. So it works like sort of like a film paradigm. So you could, for example, you could go to different frames and move things, or then it does tweens. So you go to, let's say, frame 1, put a position, move it to where it's going to be, then move your keyframe to, let's say, frame 24, and then it draws everything in between. Right? So you can create animation, and actually I taught a course where we were building games with Flash. Okay? So Flash is still around. It's sort of on its way out, but it's not out yet. Okay? I still taught it a little bit, just because there's a ton of legacy stuff out there that still exists that people need work done on. Other than that, I can't really think of a good reason to use Flash. If I was starting a web project now, I would try and avoid Flash as much as possible. Okay? So HTML5 is an attempt to get rid of that, get rid of Flash, get rid of, before if you wanted to, let's say, embed a video, it was difficult, okay? But so now what we've done, so that and a couple of other things. I'm going to show you a couple of new tags tonight, okay? So the three newest tags. Let's do this. Go here. So the three, probably I would argue, are one of the more important tags of the new ones. Are multimedia based, right? Because again, the whole point of this was is to get rid of, a lot of these third-party tools like Flash. Okay, so HTML5 basically works the same way as HTML4, etc. So for example, you have opened and closed tags. You can't interleave tags. Again, it's the same thing. You're defining the structure of the site. All that hasn't changed. What has changed is basically we've added I haven't, but what has been added are some new tags that do new things that we weren't able to do before. So we start with the usual HTML, and we start with the head. Okay, this hasn't changed. And now we're going to have a body tag. Okay? So, the first thing, the first tag that I'm going to show you is called video. Okay? So, you may have noticed that was lacking, right? We have an image tag, but why not a video tag? Okay? So, that exists now in HTML5. We can just embed a video like we embed images. Right? So we're trying to bring multimedia into the browser now, natively. So we just type video. Whoops. If I can type that. Video. Okay? And then we close the video. And then we're going to give it a few parameters. We're going to give it the width. Okay? Equals 320. And the height equals 240. and we're going to type this little keyword here, controls. That's going to give us play controls. Okay? And so now what we want to do, what I want to do, is I'm going to go and find a video to embed. So I don't know if you guys have ever been to this site, archive.org. How many of you have ever heard of archive.org? No? Archive.org is, it actually has a really terrible interface, but the stuff that it has public domain audio and video and text, like terabytes, more video than you could watch in your lifetime. And so it's all public domain, and it's kind of, a lot of it's kind of cool. Like, you know, the old like public service videos from the 50s, like how to date, you know, and stuff like that. Or like, you know, when the nuclear bomb was a big threat, and they had that thing, duck and cover. You know, like they told kids, if a nuclear bomb goes off, go under your desk, because that'll save you or something, right? So there's all these videos like that here. So let's find one. Health, your posture. What's that all about? Oh yeah, here's one. 1953. This will be kind of fun. So here's one. 32. Oh, OGG video, or actually MP4 is good too. So I'm going to right-click on this. Oh, actually, let's get this one. Health Yo MP4. Oh, it's a little big, but this is fast. Okay, so we'll save. Save as, and I'm going to save to HTML5 demo. Oh, wait. That's an old one. HTML5. Here we go. Okay, and I'm going to save it here. This one. This one will probably work too, OGG. A little smaller. Let's try that too, just in case it takes too long. Okay. The connection's pretty fast here. Oh, now that two are downloading, it's going to be slower. So let's cancel this one. Okay, so let's go back while that's downloading. We'll finish off the rest of our... So now we need to put in source tags. So we say source, and then we do source again, and now we actually give it the video file name. So what was the file name? Or I'll rename it. So let's just call it video.mp4, and we're going to say type equals video/mp4. Okay? And we're going to do two. So what this allows us to do is, in case someone's browser doesn't support a certain codec, you can actually have multiple copies of your video, and then it will serve up whatever it can. So then we'll do another source. We'll say source equals video.ogg, and the type will be video/ogg. Okay, so we'll save that. And then we'll just put a little bit of text. Your browser does not support the video tag. Okay? So that's the one thing about HTML5. So we're kind of in this funny spot where, you know, okay, so the modern browsers, even I think the newest versions of Internet Explorer and Chrome and Firefox and probably Opera and Safari will support most, if not all, of these tags. But the older version, let's say Internet Explorer 8 or 9, will not support this stuff. And a lot of people still use those old versions. So you know, as let's say a project manager, you have some big decisions to make, right? Are you willing to exclude you know, those legacy users? If you are, okay, go ahead and use HTML5. If not, you may want to look at a different solution. Okay? But let's see how this works. So we got our video, and let's retry this one. Or let's, yeah, I'm going to re-download and save as. Save here. So I'm going to go to my folder, and I'm going to rename this video. Okay, let's save it. And now let's open with Chrome. And here we go.
Here, you.
Oh.
You're supposed to do what I do. You're
Come, it's not
supposed to
playing.
Show me how I look. No.
OGG, but it's playing the... Oh! No, wait, that's what I downloaded. No, but it's playing the MP4. Maybe something's wrong with the codec. We'll try the OGG run. Oh. Okay. Well, that's why we might want to include 2 versions. So, I'm going to rename this. What was that? The file I downloaded, OGG. Okay. Maybe, well, we'll see if we can keep this. OGV. I know. So, well, let's try it. So remember, the file name and the codec can be 2 different things, right? So even like an AVI file can have many different codecs. So a codec is the scheme, the encoding scheme that the data is encoded in, right? There's many ways to encode video data, right? So let's try this. Let's see if we can get it to work. Huh. Well, let's try it in Firefox. Maybe Chrome isn't working. Ah, see? We've immediately seen the potential problems of using HTML5. It's still early, even though I've been teaching HTML5 for 5 years, and the browsers still don't all support it properly. It's so frustrating as a developer, right? So, again, in this case, you would probably have to, if you wanted to do this, you would have to have a little script that looks at what kind of browser they have and then does something different depending, right? So, yeah, that's kind of the sorry state that we're in right now. So, unfortunately, we can't jump on, heads first into HTML5 because of problems like this, right? Okay. Yep. Well, yes, oh, absolutely. But you would never, like JavaScript would never know like anything about HTML5 or HTML4. Like they're separate, right? But I think what you would want to do is your JavaScript would detect your browser type. And then JavaScript would either present HTML4 or HTML5 or some solution that works for that browser, right? That would basically be the approach. Okay, so let's try another tag. Let's try the audio tag. Okay, audio should work. Audio is a little more, right? Because audio is just video without the video, right? Okay, so. Intuitively, it's called audio, and we have an open and closed audio tag. We'll put controls here, so we're going to have controls for our audio, and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go back to archive.org, and I'm going to look in audio, and what do we have here? What's popular? Nelson Mandela, some speech. Let's see. Community audio. I suppose it doesn't really matter what. I have a ton of MP3s in my computer. See, when you have a big laptop like this, you can put in a solid state. Okay, so we'll copy this. And over here, so now I'm going to paste it here, and we'll just rename it audio.mp3, and we'll go back here, audio, so we'll say source equals audio.mp3, and type equals audio/mp3. Okay, let's see if that'll work just without see if it'll work in Chrome. Oh, no. Okay. Yep. So Chrome works fine. Okay. Let's try it in Explorer. Risky, risky. Okay. Oh wait, allow blocked content. Yes. All right. Let's see if it'll play the video. No, doesn't like the video. So there's something about that codec. Probably what I would do is I would reformat the video because that seems like that format is only, it's not very friendly. So probably if you resampled that video into a different codec, you'd probably have better luck. So like I said, this is what version of IE is this? 11. So IE 11 is pretty good, but at work I'm forced to use IE 8. Okay, and a lot of people still use IE 8 or 9. Doesn't support HTML5. Okay, these tags that we're using here. Okay. Sorry? The code? Sure. Yep. Yep. It's just how it is. Okay, I'm going to show you one more okay, I'm going to show you one more thing, but you probably won't be able to do much with it because you need to know JavaScript really well. You need to have advanced JavaScript knowledge. But the other really important tag is called canvas. Okay, so canvas is like an image tag, but it's dynamic. Okay, that means you can use JavaScript to do things to the canvas. You can put text on it. You can draw shapes. You can do many things. And so what you can do with Canvas, so I taught a web game programming class, and we used Canvas to create all sorts of video games, like web games. Okay, so you can basically do things that you could do in Flash, like animation, interactivity. You can do that with the canvas. Okay, so what we do is we select, we create the canvas. We're going to give it an ID. We'll call it my canvas, and I'm going to give it a width that equals 200 and a height that equals 100, and I'm going to give it a. I'm going to do some inline styling, which I know we're not supposed to do, but. No. So we're going to say border 1 pixel and solid, and we'll make that, I think is that white or black? Okay, let's see it. So really it's not going to be much. It's just this, a blank box right now. But what we can do is we can draw onto the canvas using JavaScript. Okay? Now this won't seem all that cool because we're not really doing much, but imagine what you could do with a loop, right? You could easily create animation with a loop. Because so what you would do is you can draw a shape on the canvas and then clear everything, move over the object 1 pixel, redraw it, right? And then keep doing that over and over and over and over again. And then you get this box or whatever moving across the screen, right? So we can create animation. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable called, let's call it C for now. And we'll say, so we're going to say document dot get element by ID. So I suppose we could use jQuery for this, but for this demo we're just going to use JavaScript. Okay, so what we're doing now is we're pulling in this canvas, we're pulling it into our script. Just like we were pulling in our form fields, Now we're pulling in our canvas. So now we have access. So now what we're going to say is we're going to make another variable called CTX, context, and we're going to say this equals to C get context, okay, 2D. Because you can actually, with JavaScript and the canvas, you can create 3D games. You could program a 3D game, a shooter. You could program a 3D shooting game. Okay, but we're going to use the 2D context. And that means we draw on 2D. So we could either have a 3D or a 2D. Okay? But even in my game class, we never did 3D. We just always did 2D. Okay? So now what we can do is we can draw a rectangle. So now that we have access to the canvas and to its context, now we say CTX, then we'll say fill style. So we're going to basically tell it the fill color to draw with. So we say FF0000, I think that's red. And then we're going to say CTX, and we're going to use a function called fill rec. And so we're going to create a rectangle at 0, 0, and it's going to be 150 pixels wide and 70 pixels high. Zero, zero. So that's going to be the top corner, right? So x, y, and then height, width, and height. Okay, so let's see what that looks like now. See? So now we've drawn a box, okay, using JavaScript. Okay. So that's all. I'm not going to take you much further than that. Because you'd really have to get your hands dirty with the programming to do anything really substantial. Let me show you a couple of examples of what you can do with this. This was a really cool one because this not only did it use Canvas, it also used a 2D game engine. It's a physics engine that actually calculates how things should move around in the space for you. So this is Canvas. This is using what I just showed you. This game. Okay, so now we can go here. So let me zoom out a little bit, and now I can drive this car. Goes off the screen. Okay, so that's one game that we did in the Canvas. Let's look at another one. We did. Oh, where's the Untangle one? That's a good example. Untangle. So this was a simple little game. Okay, and so this is all HTML. Okay, this is just a canvas. And all the stuff in here is done with JavaScript. Okay, so this is an Untangle game. You want to make any of the lines, you don't want them to cross. So how come? Oh, it's not working. Let's try another one. Oh, that one's not done either. I have all these half-done examples. What's going on? Oh, this one's even worse. Oh, well, this doesn't have the style. Why can't I grab this? Anyways, you're supposed to be able to grab these circles and move them around. Okay? And again, this is just a canvas. Okay? So I'm going to show you one more example. And so this is an example of, I think it's a really good use of the technology. And is anyone familiar with the band Arcade Fire? What's it called? Something downtown. Arcade Fire. Wilderness Downtown. Okay, so Arcade Fire commissioned a video thing. It's not really a music video. It's a new thing. It's not a music video. It's not a game. It's an interactive music video. Maybe. I guess that's one way you could put it. Let me see. I'll play the audio here. Shoot, there's no audio cable here. What didn't I do that last time? Didn't I play audio before? Audio cable. Actually, I'll do it here. Let me switch here. Come. So we don't need to record this anyways. I'll post the link to this on we'll check it out right now. Wilderness. Okay, so this was all done using HTML5, and we don't want to block always allow. Okay, and let's just get the volume going here. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so let's film click. Okay, I did that already. Oh, let's do that. Always allow. Done. Okay. So what it's doing, it says enter the address of the home where you grew up. So let's enter in, what's the address for Ryerson? It's 350 Victoria, right? Street? Is it street or avenue? Victoria Avenue? Street? Here we go, look at that, Ryerson. Okay. So now it's going to load up. Okay, here we go. So notice multiple windows. You can do that in HTML5 now. You couldn't do that before. And those are animated with programming code, right? Those are generated dynamically. This is a video, like that's playing back. So notice what that is. That's a map, street view from Google Maps that they've pulled in. And then they've animated the birds over top. So look, can you see the little guy running on the map? Okay. Oops. So now there's a little bit of interactivity we can do here. So we can draw, we can type stuff. Okay, again, this is all Canvas. And then notice these are animating as I move, right? As I draw. So now watch, they're going to be those animated birds are going to land on what I drew. dynamically, right? So this video is customized. Okay, pretty cool, right? So that's I think a good example of using all of the new tools that HTML5 brings in, right? So you have animation, like programmed animation, video, audio. Now the other thing that we haven't really talked about in this class that's really important for web development is mashups. So you'll notice they use Google Maps, right? So there are things, has anyone ever heard of the term API? That stands for Application Programming Interface. So what a lot of companies will do when they have a tool like Google Maps, they'll release something called an API. Okay, so that is Google allows you to use their mapping service as part of your website free of charge. Okay, so you can make calls to the Google Maps system as if you were part of Google. So without, one of my last semester I taught a software development course, and one of my groups did a crime reporting site. And so they used the Google Maps API to integrate that data together. And so you can create really, really powerful applications that you would never be able to develop on your own, right? I showed you the scooter game application. Did I? Right, with the mobile phones and that use GPS and Google Maps. Again, we would never have been able, like a team of 2 college students worked on this for a year, and they created a video game that would have been impossible to create from scratch. But what we do, so Facebook has an API, Twitter has an API, Google has an API, eBay has an API. You can access their services through code. Okay, and then combine it to create really cool sites like these. Okay? Okay, any questions about HTML5? So I want to show you one last thing in HTML5 and then I'm going to talk about databases for a second. Okay, so remember when we first looked at think back to when we first did layout, our first or second assignment, right? Where we did, we did layout with div tags. Remember, we had our header tag, and we had our content, and we had our footer. Okay, so the people that developed HTML5, they realized that was a trend. People were doing layout with these div tags, but see, the thing is. You might call it content, and I might call it main content, and someone else might call it section or something. And so there's no standardization across developers. So what HTML5 introduces is a series of new tags that are basically, they're div tags, but they have a special name. Right? So instead of doing this, instead of doing up here, let's say, instead of saying div and then ID equals footer, okay, and then closing the div, right? And then you have footer stuff in here, right? And doing that, let's see what that looks like. What's that?
Showing up on your screen.
Oh, sorry. Back to main menu, laptop. There we go. Okay. Footer, so save. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, footer, right? But, you know, like I said, you might call it footer, or no, not footer. Why are we putting footer up here? Header, right? So, but, you know, I might call it header. You might call it top nav or something, and so there's no consistency. So what we do now with HTML5 is they've given us a whole list of, they're called semantic tags, a whole list. And they're actually semantic structure. So instead of just having these generic div tags, now we have specific tags, name stuff. So we have a tag named header, a tag named nav, a tag named section, right? A tag named article, and a tag named footer. So rather than saying div and then giving it an ID, we just say header, right? And so remember, header is not head. Header is not head. Head is something very specific, right? What's special about head? Remember, can you tell me what's special about the head tag? Yep. Yep, but more general. Anything in the head tag does not what? Show on your page, right? But the header tag is just like a div tag. Okay, so we would say header, header, and then header. Okay? And that works the same way as your div tag. But now that we're using the semantic layout, okay, now there's standardization. So you use section, or you use header, I use header too. Okay? And it's very important to have consistency and standardization. Okay? And you'll see that importance if you ever work on somebody else's code. Okay? It can be a very, very difficult thing to do, especially if they don't adhere to standards. Okay? So we have header. We also have section. We have footer. So at the bottom here, we could put our footer tag. Okay? So it's much more standard, and it's semantic. It describes to you what is going on, right? It's clear. This is the footer stuff. This is where you're going to put the footer information. Okay, and then you style it in CSS just the same. And so instead of accessing on the ID, which you still could do, you could give it, you know, this is ID footer 1 or something. But you would just reference all footers and style all footers. Okay? Okay. Any questions about HTML5 and what it is? So remember, so a good thing, you know, a lot of these sites that show you HTML5, they'll indicate what browsers support these features. Okay, so for example, if we want to use semantic elements, theoretically anything Internet Explorer 9 and above, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, and Opera. Should. Not all, you know, should and does are sometimes different things. Okay? So that's the one thing you have to be careful about if you're using HTML5, is that you are pretty much excluding legacy users. Okay? Okay. Good. Okay, so we're going to spend about another half hour, maybe 45, and then we'll wrap up. So I want to talk about databases for a second here. Database design. Okay? So database, so remember I said, what were the 3 pillars of programming? What are the 3 pillars of programming? We used one. We used them all today. No, we used 2 of them today. No, more low-level, specific. The 3 pillars of programming were conditional statements, variables, and loops. Okay, so database design is an extension of variables. Okay, because so variables are what? They are a container that you store data, some data, simple data, right? One number or one string, right? One thing. Okay, but what if you have many things? What if you have an entire school of people that has data and we need to keep track of all that data? Well, we wouldn't just put it in variables because that'll get insane. It'll get totally confusing. Okay? So what we do is we use things called a database. Okay? And there are things called relational databases. Okay? And what that allows you to do is create tables that are made up of rows and columns, okay, of data, and it allows you to join information from each table and link it together. Okay? And I'm going to take you through an example that will show you how this is done. Okay? Okay. So, let's look at Excel. Because when I think about tables, I always envision, Excel is kind of the table thing. It's a table app, right? So you can envision, let's say, an SQL table, right? So SQL stands for Structured Query Language. So a database management system is an application, okay, that allows you to run the SQL queries, statements, okay? And all they do is pull information from the database in an extremely fast, efficient manner. Okay? So, what we have, so when we have a database, okay, a database is our overarching collection, right? Our database will hold all of the information for whatever it is we're building for, okay? So let's say we're going to build a database for Ryerson University, okay? So we're going to need a bunch of tables, probably somewhere between 5 to 10 tables. I haven't gone through this. We're going to go through this together, okay? So each table will be comprised of columns, okay? And the columns are like the fields that you want to collect. So let's say, for example, probably the most obvious table that we'd create for Ryerson would be a table that stores student information. Okay, so that's the name of our table, student. Okay, so what are some things we need to know about students? Yep, student ID. Okay, so each one of these that we determined, they're going to be a column. Okay, it's a bit of information that we want to store. We want to store around each person. Okay, we want to associate that information with each person. Okay, now each row in our table is going to represent a person, right? So the columns are the fields that we want, and the rows are the records, right? The examples of those, the actual instances of those columns. Okay, so student ID is one. What's another one? Yeah, so usually I would split it up. First name, last name, maybe middle name. What else? Marks? Yes. But what we're going to do with marks is we're going to put marks in its own table. And I'm going to show you how you can use relational databases to join multiple tables, because what relational databases do for you is reduce the redundant storage of information, right? And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But let's just think some more stuff more specific to the student. Also another table. Also another table. Because think about it this way. What if someone's taking 6 courses, or what if someone's taking 2? So should I have 6 columns or should I have 2? And so if I have 6 and someone's only taking 2, does that mean 4 columns are going to be blank? Or what if someone takes a 7th? Then my database design is broken, right? So we're going to create a separate courses table. But those are good. So we've identified 2 more tables. So one was marks and the other one was courses. Okay. What else for student do we want? Year? So like the year they enrolled? Okay, enrollment year. What else?
Gender.
Sure. What else? Yep.
I was gonna say like graduating year.
Unknown. Unknown. Age, yep. Birth date. Yep. Why wouldn't you store the age? Yeah. How would you know? If you don't know when you put it in, how do you know if it's right? But if you have the birth date, you can calculate the age, right? Okay, what else? Yep. Sure. Actually, you know what? Even they ask that stuff now. You know, for these diversity surveys, they ask you, what do you identify as? Stuff like that. So yeah, okay. What else? Yes, I think we would have a new table. What would we call that? Maybe we'd call that fees. We'll come back to that. What else? So how do we contact the student? We need to know their phone number, and we need to know their email, and we need to know their address and their city. What else? Postal code. What else? That's probably okay. Sure. Yeah, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. But you get the idea now, right? So information specifically tied to the student. Okay? So there's probably a few more we're forgetting, but we can come back if we remember any more. Okay. So one thing about tables is all tables need a column, one column, where each row has a unique ID. Yes. Primary key, that's what it's called. Primary key. Okay? So every table needs one column that is totally unique across the entire table. So, do you think, should we use phone number for the primary key? Why not? Could we though? Because what if two people can have the same phone number? Right? Yeah, two brothers, or people living in the whatever, roommates. How about, could we use name? No. Why can't we use name? Yeah, exactly. So, is there anything here we could use? Student ID. We could use student ID. We could. But usually, when I create a database, usually I create a special column called ID. Okay? That will be totally unique. So not even student number. Because even there's a slight chance maybe that student numbers could be recycled. Like maybe when, I don't know, maybe the system works when you graduate, they recycle your number. It could be. Okay? So usually for every single table, I just put the first thing I put in is ID. Okay? And so what you do in your database management system, you make this field, it's called auto increment. So whenever you create a new record, it automatically creates a new unique ID and assigns it and puts it in there. Okay? So you'll see in a minute why it's crucial to have a unique primary key. Okay? So, let's think of another table that we might need. Sure. So, let's do employees. Employees, right? So, what's the first one we're going to start with? ID. We want an ID, okay? And then we all have employee numbers, employee number, or an ID. And then similar stuff, right? First name, last name, middle name, maybe start date, gender, birth date, nationality maybe. Yeah, phone. We'll just copy all this. and maybe we'll have a little bit more. So we'll have maybe category, job category. So whether you're administration, faculty, or support. So job category. And then maybe position. So if you're, you're academic and you're assistant professor, something like that. Okay? Okay, that's another table. Pretty much done. Okay? What else what other table do we want? Maybe we want, sure. So let's go down to okay, because I think we're going to have two tables. We're going to have one that stores the courses offered, and another one that keeps track of who's enrolled in what. Okay, so this is going to be courses offered. So what are the columns we're going to? What's the first one we always need? ID. Okay, and so what's some of the other fields that we would have? Sure. What else? Yeah, title, course code. Sorry? Actually, that would be, because there's multiple. See, the problem is when you have multiple things, then that's a good indication you need a separate table, right? So, yeah. Yeah, maybe cost, so how much it costs to take the course. I think that's going to be part of the next table we're going to do. Okay, so because maybe we'll come back to this one. So let's make the table courses enrolled. Okay? So, what's the first thing we need? ID. Okay? So, what's the courses? So, we have a list, we have a database here. So, let's fill one in. So, let's say the ID is 001. The department is, what's the department here? ComSci. And the title is Programming. The code is COM 101. And the cost is $5.99. Okay? Okay. So, this is going to be our first instance of when we're joining together two tables. We can join together. And this is, you're going to see the relational aspect of relational databases. Okay? So, the second, I'm going to tell you what the next column is going to be, and that is going to be course ID. Okay? So that is the ID of the course offered, not the course being run, right? Those can be two different things. Like sometimes a course is only run in the fall, right? So you would have one table that has your repository of all courses that you offer, and then another one that keeps track of what's being offered right now. Okay? So we have the course enrolled, the course ID, so that'll keep track of what course it is. Now, what's the other thing? So a course that is being run, what does it need that a course that's just on the books doesn't need? You need an instructor, right? Because you might have, let's say we have Programming 101. You might have 5 sections, and one section might be taught by Smith, and one section might be taught by Jones. So we would have 2 rows, okay? So the other column we're going to have is instructor ID. Okay? And that instructor ID, where are we going to get that information from? What table is going to store the instructor information? The employee table, exactly. Okay, so we have course ID, instructor ID. What else? Well, see, now we have multiples again. So now we're going to need another table, but we'll come back to that. in a second. So we have instructor ID. So we have the start date, right? We have the end date. Right? What else do we have? I think that's good enough for now. Okay, so let's fill out our. So we're starting to get together. Like it's starting to look real here. So let's put in a row for employees. Okay, so this is going to be me. I'm in ID number 1, and my employee number is. Well, let's say my employee number is. We'll make it different than the ID. So let's make it. No. We'll keep it the same. So first name, last name, middle name, start date. When did I start at Ryerson? It's been a little while now. Let's say 2006. I'm male, and I was born April 28th, and I'm Canadian, I suppose. And 416. Well, I mean, I'm like third generation. It's not. My ethnicity's been sort of watered down, right? Okay. Let's say 555. 555, 555, 555, cbrandj@gmail, 123 Maine, Toronto, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Okay, job category, so I'd be academic, and I'd be instructor. Okay. And, did I miss this one? Yeah, okay, so we'll move this over one. Okay, so we have one. At this school, we have one employee, and he's an instructor, and it's me. So we're going to create, so we have at this school, we have one course, programming, okay? So I'm the school administrator wants to create an instance of this course. We're going to run this course, right? We're going to run it starting in September, okay? So the first thing is we give it a unique ID, okay? Now, we're going to put the course ID here. So we want to run Programming Comp 101. So what do we put here? Nope. What we do is we reference the primary key, right? Because there might be another course called Com 101, which is actually Communications 101 or something. So that's why we always keep a unique primary key. It's because it gives us absolute guarantee that we're going to pick the one and only row that we want. So here we're going to put the course ID as 1. Okay? Now what about the instructor ID? Right? Let's look up. So there's only one instructor at this school, and his ID is 1, so that's what it's going to be, 1. Okay? And then the start date will be September 2014, and the end date will be December 2014. Okay? Okay, now let's talk about fees. So, we need a student. So here's a student. The ID is 2. So John Smith, enrollment, we'll say 2014, gender male, birth date June 1st, nationality British, phone number 555-444-5555, john@gmail, and etc. You get the rest of it. Okay, so now let's fill out the marks table. Let's create that one. Okay, because now we're going to start pulling in from all sorts of other tables. Okay, so what's the first thing we need for marks? Always the first thing. ID. Always need a unique primary key. So what's the next thing that we want? What? The topic? You mean like the course? But what's even more important than that? The student. Who's this mark attached to? Student ID. What else is important? So what you said, the course, right? So who in what course is getting what mark? And so then we would say course ID. And then finally we would say grade. Right? So let's create a new course. Let's create, so the ID is 2. We're still in the Comp Sci department. And this one will be databases. And so this will be COM 102, and the fee will be $5.99. Okay? So we're also going to create another instance of that. So it's ID 2. We're going to use the course ID 2. The instructor will be me again. There's only one instructor, so I'm putting instructor ID 1. And then the start date will also be September 14th, and the end date will be December 14th. Okay? So now so now John Smith is taking 2 courses. He's taking Programming 1 and Database. Okay? So how many rows am I going to need in my marks table to track that information? 2 rows. Okay? So what am I going to put? So I'm going to enter in the marks for John now. So what's the first thing that I put? What do I put in ID? Sorry? No, so yeah, so it's a unique key. Okay, any number. That's automatically done by the database. So which student ID do I put in? John, which is, his ID is 1. And so this is for Programming 101. So what course ID do I use? 1. And let's say he got a D. He's not a very good programmer. Okay? So now I want to do the same thing, but for his other course. So what do I put for ID 2? What do I put for ID? 2. Because usually what you do is you do auto increment and it just adds 1. Okay? So what's the student ID? I'm still talking about John, right? 1. And what's the course ID? 2. And what's the, let's say he's good at databases. Okay, he got a B. Okay? Okay. So now you're starting to see how it comes together. So what you can do with SQL, so one is you can pull the data out. You could say select all from employees, and then it will print all the rows of employees you have. Or you could say select all from employees where last name equals Brange, and it will give you only the rows with last name Brange. Okay? Or you could do things, you can update. You could say update all the rows in employees where last name equals Brange, and then you say phone number equals the new value, and then you could switch the value. Okay? Now the coolest thing you can do is called a join. Okay? So what you could do is you could say give me all the marks of all the males. So what it would do is it would go through the first table and get only the males, and then join wherever. So you would say join. So students. You would say join the student IDs. You would join. See how this is linked to this. So you can mash these 2 tables together into one. So then you would have, so then at the end here, it would say, you could say grade. And so it would mix, and so you basically create a new custom table. So you could create a new table that says, I only want the last name and the grade. So what it does is it pulls all the last names. So it would say Smith, and it would create a new table with last name and grade, and then it would put the last name and then D, and then the other one, which would be B, like that, right? And then you could say, show me all the grades of anyone living in Toronto. You could do that. Or you could say, show me the cities of everyone with an A. Right? And so what you're doing is you're defining or taking advantage of relationships between the tables. Right? So see how here, let's color code this. So this is course ID. This is linked over here. Where did we do? Right here, right? And then, let's see. So this is course ID as well. And then we have employee ID. Let's make this blue. Okay, and then this is employee ID. So these are the points. These are like the intersection points where you can join your tables. Okay? And this stuff becomes so powerful. You can do, a friend of mine has been working for a little while now on a currency trading algorithm. And so what he does is he scrubs historical stock trading data, puts it into an SQL database, and runs these millions and millions of queries on this data. And then he uses the results of that to then make trades. Right? So he uses advanced SQL techniques to crunch millions and millions of data points. Okay? It's really, the power of SQL is really, really incredible. Like think about how fast you can log into Facebook. Okay? How many users does Facebook have now? It's half a billion, or is it a billion? Somewhere around there. So when you log in, it's searching through millions and millions and millions of records instantly. Okay? Because of the way, so what you do is you can reorganize your tables. It's called indexing. So you sort your data in a certain way, and then the database management system can then look through it really, really fast. Right? Because think, let's say you organize everything alphabetically, and you're looking for something that that starts with Z, you don't have to look through all the A's, B's, C's, and D's, right? You just skip ahead, or you go from the back, right? Something like that. Okay. Okay. So let me show you how to do this for real in MySQL. Okay. So you guys. I showed you how to install WAMP last time, right? And remember WAMP, what does WAMP stand for? W-A-M-P. What do those stand for? Windows, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, right? So the M in WAMP is for MySQL. So what I'm going to do is go to phpMyAdmin. Okay, we looked at that a little bit last week. I think it's just root. So phpMyAdmin is a graphical, it's a GUI that allows you to manipulate tables without really knowing a lot of SQL. Because in the old days, you had to do all the SQL commands on the command line. Okay, but now we can do it all here. So so we've done the design here, and it's usually a good idea to do something like this here, and then we'll implement it. Okay, and it's really, really easy, you'll see. So we're going to create a new database. We'll call this school. Okay, so now we're going to click on school, and we need to create our first table. So what was our first table was called students. And how many columns do we need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15. And we can add and subtract later, but for now we'll just do 15. Okay. So look at this. So now we have a little GUI. So the first thing is we select, what's the first column always? ID. Okay? And remember, we have different types. So ID should be an integer, because we're going to make it, so we're going to click this button. See, it says AI. That stands for auto increment. Okay? And then we're also going to make it the primary key. Okay? So every time we insert a row, this column will be updated automatically. Okay? So, let's do this half screen here. Half the screen here. So we had ID, then we had student ID. Now, what type should that be? It is a number. I guess we could use it as int for now. We'll save it as an int. Then we have first name. Oops. First name. So should first name be an integer? No. So what we have to do is, the next most common is called varchar, and that's basically like a string. Okay, so we'll pick varchar. And then the other thing we have to do with varchar is tell it how long we expect the data to be. So how many letters? What's the world's longest name? How many letters are in it? 50? Let's put 100 just to be safe. I'm sure someone out there has a first name with more than 100 letters. So then we'll say middle name, and also we'll change that to varchar with 100. What's the world's longest name? Holy mackerel. Well, let's do it. Our database has to work for all cases, okay? And we may get that person here. Last name. So we'll change that to varchar as well, and we'll make that 600. Certainly that could be long. Okay, what else do we have? Enrollment date. Enrollment date. So actually SQL has a special date type. So we'll use that. And what else do we have? Gender. That will do varchar. And it's either female's the longest. How many characters in female? 6? Let's make it 7 just in case. And then what else do we have? Gender, birth date. So we'll use the date type again. And what else do we have? Nationality. That'll be a varchar. And what's the longest country name? Kazakhstan or something? That's pretty long. Or isn't there? There's a couple like the People's Republic of China. That's pretty long. Let's say 100. That should cover us. Yeah, exactly. So what this tool does is it generates the code for you. So you could copy and paste it and then use the code, or you just use the tool. Yes, absolutely. So again, like I said, my friend who's developing the stock trading algorithm, all his queries are in code, right? I know. And so for most, for most web people, you don't really need a ton of SQL. You just need the basics, and this will really get you pretty far. Okay. So we have then phone. So what type should phone number be? I would say varchar, because we might have hyphens in there. So it's 9 plus 2 hyphens, 11. Let's make it 12 to be safe. Then we have email, also a varchar. Let's make that 200. People have long emails. And then we have address. Let's make that 200. City, varchar 200. Postal and emergency contact. Postal code, that's also a varchar. And we'll make that 7 just to be safe. And emergency contact, varchar, and 12. Okay? So now we just say save. And here's our table. Okay? So now let's create a student. So all we do is we go to insert. And now we can, so we'll leave this one blank because it'll take care of it automatically. So let's do this. 111 111 111. John. No middle name. Smith. Enrollment date. And gender is male. And birth date is. Oh, there's no year one on this. Let's see. Can I do this? 1982 0701. Okay. Excellent. And nationality, British. And phone number, 555-555-555. Email, john@gmail. Okay, etc. You get the idea. So then I click go. And see how it generates, this is the SQL code that you would normally need to type in. Okay, but it generates it for you and does it. So now if I go to browse, See, it says it generates select star. That means select all from the table students. Okay, and then just that this just means only display 30 records. Okay, so here we go. We can see our table here. Okay. And then we can, of course, do the same thing for the rest of the tables, right? We would go to structure. We'd go to school because we want to go to our database and create a new table. So then, what was the short one? Where was our design here? Oh, what happened to my? Oh. Okay. So let's do marks, right? So we'd say marks, and we had 4 columns. So the first one was ID, as always, and we keep it as int, and we make it our primary key and auto increment, and then we have, where is it? Where's our design? Student ID, course ID, and grade. Student ID would be int, and course ID, and then grade will be a varchar, and will be, let's make it 3, just to be safe, because, you know, A plus, whatever. Okay? So now our database has 2 tables. See, we have marks, and we have students. So this GUI allows us to do basically all the stuff we need to do with our table. So we can insert rows, we can search it, we can change the structure of the tables, we can add columns, delete columns, edit columns, change the types, do searches. We can even, if we then, like we get good at SQL, we can actually type in our SQL commands. This is where you would do joins and things, right? And so you would basically just follow that procedure that I showed you for this design, right? And so what we're going to look at, I think I'm going to end in a couple minutes, but what we're going to look at next week, and it's going to be, I think you'll be slightly overwhelmed next week, but I want to show you some stuff that is really important, because it's really going to show you what's coming, right? Because so what PHP or ASP is really good at doing is interfacing. It acts as an interface between your database and your web page, right? So PHP is going to talk to your database and submit queries, receive the result, and then PHP will then send it into your HTML. Okay, so PHP is going to exist as an intermediary between your database and your HTML. Once you learn this stuff, once you learn SQL, like database, it doesn't have to be MySQL, any database, and server-side scripting, then you have the full tool set to create really interesting and useful websites, right? So the first, remember I told you this is self-taught. I learned all this stuff by, outside of coursework. So the first site I made was a apartment finding website, right? Because at the time, this was 2002, 2003. It was viewit.ca was the only thing, and I was moving every year, and this was, so finding apartments was kind of in my thinking. So think of it this way. So what database, what tables would I have needed for my apartment finding website? Think of the stuff that you need. Real high level. No, but so rent would be part of would be a column in a table. Sorry? That would be part of, well, you would have available apartments table, right? And you would have a users table, because the people log in. And so you might have, and then you might have different user types. Like I had landlords, and I had, what did I call them? Like renters, right? And then so the landlords, they could post apartments. They could post, so they could create records in the database. And then the renters, they could view those databases. And you know what? I don't think it's up anymore. The same friend that was running the stock trading thing, was hosting my site free for the longest time. Yeah, sorry, it's gone. Maybe, I had another one. Because you know what I did is I created a whole bunch of the same one for a bunch of cities. Oh, was it .ca? Nah, okay, it's gone. But so that was my how I taught myself all of this development, right? And so what I did is it forced me, as I thought, okay, what do I need? I need some way to store the apartment data. So I went and found out about MySQL, right? And then I needed some way to retrieve that. So I went in and read about PHP and all that stuff, right? So this is really where you want to aim, right? If you can do this stuff, you can create money-making websites that people will want to go to and use, right? You could think of I know there's a professor, he used to be here. Has anyone ever heard of James Norrie? No, he was a professor here at Ryerson for the longest time. Google James Norrie. Not right now, you don't have to, but at some point. Because I loved him. He was my favorite prof here. But he was really outspoken, and so he pissed off a lot of people, and they forced him out. It was so unfortunate. He actually sued Ryerson and won, because he had tenure, and they fired him. So, but he was a founder of Lavalife. He has a driver. Okay, he has a personal driver, someone that drives him around. So think of Lavalife. Once you learn this stuff, you have the tools to create a dating website. What do you need? You need a table to store your users, and that's it, really, right? Like what other table would you even need? Like maybe you would have a table to hold messages that go between the users. Like, in Facebook, you can send instant messaging. That stuff is stored in a database, right? So when you send it, it gets stored in the database, and when you read it, it gets pulled out, right? So that game that I told you, the GPS game, what it would do is the phone was constantly, so it would read its GPS, send that information to the server, and the server would then add that into a database row, right? And then the other phones would then pull all those rows back and draw their gaming map, right? So there are every application is supported by a database like this. If you have any information, you need a database. That's it. And this is where the really useful stuff comes. Like e-commerce and just creating sites that people want to go to, right? There's more than just personal portfolio site or whatever, right? Okay, so here's your assignment for next week. Okay, so I want you to only design. You don't have to implement. I want you to design a database for a police station. Okay, so you can do it in Excel, like just how we did here. So just name. So make sure you have the name of your table and all of your columns, and maybe one row for each table. Okay, and if you really want to, so if you want 10 out of 10, if you do that, I'll give you 9 out of 10. If you also color code your foreign keys with your primary keys with the so this is a foreign key because it's referencing this primary key. So if you color code your keys, I'll give you 10 out of 10. Well, as long as your design is appropriate. Okay? So basically I'm looking for this, but for a police station. Okay? So remember, usually if you have multiple things, you really should have a new table, right? Or things that so multiples, especially if you do not know how many you're going to have, right? Like remember we were talking about courses, right? So I could have, let's say in my student table, I could put course 1, course 2, course 3, course 4. But this is a really poor design because it's not scalable. So let's say I left it at that. What if someone wants to take 5? Now I have to change the structure of my database, which from a development, that's a nightmare. That is, especially if you've developed layers over top. Whoa, I wouldn't even think about that. But so now what we're doing is, so we've created a separate table. that can now, because rows, we can just add as many rows as we want, right? So whenever if you come across something where you're finding you're putting in many columns similarly named and typed, that means you should think about creating a new table, a separate table, right? Because remember, we can always join later. We want to have no redundancy, right? We only want to store the information where we need to. Okay? So any questions about databases and database design? No? Okay. So I'll post a quick write-up for that assignment on Blackboard, and so it'll be due before next class, and then just submit your Excel sheet, or however you do it. You can do it in a text file, as long as it kind of looks like this. That's fine. And in a text file, you can just press tab. Like tab is short for table, right? So you just tab and do the same kind of thing. Yeah, I'll post the video today. I'll post this, and I'll post everything we did today. Question? Okay, one sec. Yep. This is school database. Okay. Any other questions? Yep.
So color code, like how you did it with course ID, right there.
Yeah.
What you mean?
Exactly. So this is the main repository of all the courses offered, right? And then this is a special table of all the courses currently running, right? And so what we're doing is we're just referencing this. So we're saying, I have an instance of a course, because again, I could do this. I could say, I could have redundant. So I could say course enrolled. So I could put department and title and title and code, but that's redundant now because now I'm storing it in this table and in this table. So what I do is I just store the ID and then everything else comes with it. Right? See how that works? Okay, I know. Yeah, you can take it if you want. You work at 9, right? Yeah. No, that's fine. We're done. Any other questions? No. Okay. So the database assignment is due next week, and that'll be your final assignment. So next week I'm going to push you guys even more. We're gonna push you into the future, and then hopefully if you take another course, you'll be prepped for that one. Okay. Okay. So if anyone did their WordPress assignment locally, you can come and show me, and then I'll mark you. Okay. Other than that, yep. Yeah, just submit the link.
But I'm not sure
Oh, you did it locally or on WordPress.com?
on my machine.
On your computer. So yeah, come show me.
But my computer's at home.
Well, that's going to be a problem. Well, I'll bring it next week then. You have to, because you have to.
I'm not sure how to get published.
Yeah. Because you can't really just do that simply to WordPress.com. So, well, what you have to do. So you have it on a desktop at home or something? Okay, email. Can you just send me an email that's what you did, and then let me think about it, and I'll get you a solution. Okay. Yep. So it's just still submit something to the drop, like anything, just an empty text file, because it doesn't let. Or no, that's okay actually.
It's here.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. But I think one of the old CMS I used to use didn't allow me to put a grade unless something was there. But I don't think that's true.
By the way, I'm the sucker who bought the Mac.
What's that?
I am the sucker who bought the Mac. I just bought it.
Oh, that's good.
So I create. You love.
It's a nice looking laptop. That's a big screen, eh? What is that? 17?
This is like the they call it notebook.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah. Okay, let me see. Yeah.
I can show you that for this.
No, that's fine. Because I mean, the point with WordPress is that you don't have to worry about all that stuff, right? It's just
It's really just everything. It's just
yeah, it's really intuitive, right? You can learn it just by sort of playing with it.
and I
Yeah.
found something like you can
Yeah.
so also
Yeah.
gives you different options.
Yeah, there are so, I mean, you could spend hours, days just looking through all the plugins, right?
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really powerful. Cool.
So you can set rules like how many numbers of letters you can insert. If you don't put the username, it won't limit some
Yeah.
number.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Great.
My name is Randa.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, you know what? Maybe just send me a quick email.
Okay.
Just saying you looked at this in class, and then I'll remember to.
Okay, sure. Shall I send you a shot for the second to remember?
Sure. Yeah. Yep. No, you have to police station, like you know the basics of how a police station works, right? What do you got? You got cops, right? What else? You have prisoners, right? You have arrest records, right? People get arrested, and so there's a record. There's evidence, right? Anytime there's judges, right? So anytime there's evidence comes in, they catalog it, right? They like the color, the size, all that stuff, right? And then maybe there's cases, right? You might have cases. And what else? Yeah, just think through your mind. You know, okay, what happens in a police? You know, maybe watch a few cop movies or something, and then you know, I don't expect you to be an expert on, you know, I'm sure there's some details you left out, but just in general, you know, what information does a police station have, right? And then try and design that. Okay.